May 28, 1940. The Reich Air Ministry in Berlin. Reich Marshal Hermann Göring set the intelligence report down with evident disdain. The document detailed President Roosevelt's appeal to Congress for an unparalleled expansion of American aircraft manufacturing, a capacity to produce 50,000 planes each year. The Americans are grasping at straws if they think such rhetoric will intimidate us, Göring informed his staff. They understand nothing of wartime manufacturing. Let them attempt to repurpose their automobile plants. They will discover that constructing warplanes demands more than mere assembly lines. What Göring failed to comprehend was that in Detroit, a Danish immigrant named William Tutzen was already proving him mistaken. The former president of General Motors, now serving as Roosevelt's production czar for $1 annually, was orchestrating the most monumental industrial metamorphosis in human history. Within 4 years, American factories would not just produce the initially dismissed 50,000 aircraft, but nearly 100,000 planes each year, all while simultaneously supplying 2 vast theaters of conflict across opposing oceans. The declaration that incited the German leadership's contempt had been issued on May 16, 1940, as German panzer divisions rapidly advanced through France. Standing before Congress, Franklin Roosevelt had proclaimed, "I would like to see this nation mobilized to the capability of turning out at least 50,000 planes annually." The response was skepticism, even from allied nations. In 1939, America had manufactured a mere 3,611 military aircraft. The Army Air Corps possessed 1,700 combat planes, many of them outdated. Yet, Roosevelt was demanding a 14-fold surge in production. William Knudsen became the mastermind behind this remarkable feat. When questioned about who could possibly achieve such an ambitious production target, presidential advisor Bernard Baruch responded, "First, Bill Knudsen. Second, Bill Knudsen. Third, Bill Knudsen." Knudsen had relinquished his $300,000 salary to serve his adopted country, bringing the principles of automotive mass production to aircraft manufacturing. The transformation commenced immediately. By December 1941, American factories were producing 2,000 military aircraft each month, a 20-fold increase from 2 years prior. The Ford Motor Company unveiled plans for a colossal bomber assembly facility at Willow Run, Michigan. Boeing expanded its operations in Seattle. Douglas Aircraft enlisted thousands of new employees. The arsenal of democracy was awakening. The Nazi High Command's dismissal of American industrial might stem from a blend of racial prejudice and deliberate ignorance. General Friedrich von Berthieke, military attaché in Washington from 1933 to 1941, transmitted accurate dispatches detailing America's industrial mobilization efforts. His cable in December 1940 warned, "American war production will ascend to unimaginable levels." Berlin disregarded these advisories as defeatist hyperbole. When Berthieke met with Hitler in February 1939 to discuss American industrial capacity, the Führer ranted about American racial degeneracy instead of heeding intelligence assessments. Hitler asserted that Americans were half Judaized and half negrified, incapable of sustained warfare. This ideological blindness would prove catastrophic. The prejudice permeated all ranks. Luftwaffe intelligence dismissed reports of women entering aircraft factories as signs of American desperation. They could not conceive that democratic mobilization might surpass totalitarian directives. When dispatches arrived detailing factories operating around the clock, German analysts assumed exaggeration. The Nazi worldview simply could not accommodate the American reality. Ford's Willow Run plant epitomized American ambition. Erected on farmland commencing April 18, 1941, it became the world's largest single-roof factory, encompassing 3.5 million square feet with an assembly line stretching 1 mile. Charles Sorensen, Ford's production chief, vowed to construct 1 B-24 Liberator bomber per hour, while other factories managed 1 per day. Initial outcomes were disastrous. The first bomber, completed in September 1942, required a complete reconstruction. Quality control failures reached 50%. By February 1943, Willow Run had produced merely 56 bombers monthly, far short of the promised hundreds. Critics sarcastically dubbed it, "Will it run?" But Ford engineers persisted, breaking down the B-24's 488,193 components into manageable sub-assemblies. They developed hydraulic riveting tools, prefabricated wiring harnesses, and mobile assembly lines. They incorporated 57 design modifications in 1943 alone while sustaining production. By September 1943, monthly output reached 148 bombers. By December, it was 365. The turning point arrived in April 1944 when Willow Run produced 428 B-24s, one every 63 minutes, 24 hours a day. This single facility was outproducing the entirety of the German aviation industry. German pilots first recognized American production superiority during the Tunisia campaign. Major Johannes Steinhoff, commander of JG-77, noted in December 1942, "The American pilots are no longer amateurs. Most concerningly, there are more of them every day." The revelation intensified throughout 1943. January 27th marked the inaugural American raid on German soil itself, with 64 bombers targeting Wilhelmshaven. By October, during Black Thursday at Schweinfurt, the Americans could lose 60 B-17s and replace them within 2 weeks. The mathematics had become irrefutable. During Big Week, from February 20th to 25th, 1944, the 8th and 15th Air Forces launched 3,500 bomber sorties against German aircraft production facilities. The Luftwaffe lost between 262 and 355 fighters, but more critically, approximately 100 irreplaceable veteran pilots. General Adolf Galland reported to Göring that Germany was losing 1,200 fighters monthly while producing 1,000. America was producing 2,500 fighters monthly while losing 400. Major Heinz Baer, one of Germany's leading aces with 220 victories, described a January 1944 mission over Brunswick. The bomber stream stretched from horizon to horizon, at least 700 flying fortresses and liberators. We were 8 fighters against hundreds. It was hopeless. By 1944, American aircraft production had reached astonishing volumes. That year alone, factories manufactured 96,270 aircraft, including 16,048 four-engine bombers, 35,743 fighters, and 22,591 multi-engine aircraft. This single year's output surpassed Germany's entire wartime production of approximately 94,677 aircraft. The disparity extended beyond mere numbers. Each American bomber carried 13.50 caliber machine guns with thousands of rounds. German fighters increasingly took flight with incomplete ammunition loads. American bombers featured powered turrets, advanced bomb sights, and sophisticated navigation equipment. German fighters often lacked functional radios. Boeing's Plant 2 in Seattle was producing 16 B-17s daily by May 1944. Douglas Aircraft, which employed a mere 68 individuals in 1936, had expanded to 167,000 workers across 9 facilities. North American Aviation churned out 500 P-51 Mustangs monthly. Lockheed achieved production of 1 P-38 Lightning every 90 minutes while implementing 2,127 combat-driven modifications. Supporting industries matched this pace. General Motors produced 57,658 aircraft engines under license. Packard built 55,523 Rolls-Royce Merlins. Alcoa's aluminum output increased 600%. Dow Chemical's magnesium production grew from 6 million pounds annually to 333 million. The transformation of America's workforce shattered Nazi preconceptions. Women, comprising less than 1% of aircraft workers in 1941, represented 65% by 1943, totaling 310,000 women among aircraft industry employees. At Douglas Long Beach, 22,380 of 41,620 employees were women. Roswell Monroe, the original Rosie the Riveter, drove 3,000 rivets per shift at Willow Run with 99.5% accuracy. Female inspectors at Douglas reduced defect rates from 3.2 to 0.3%. Ford redesigned tools for smaller hands, inadvertently enhancing efficiency. Lighter pneumatic tools reduced fatigue, while better positioned workstations decreased injuries. German intelligence interpreted the employment of women as a sign of desperation. A captured Luftwaffe report dismissed these workers as temporary, forecasting a collapse in quality. Instead, precision improved. Women excelled at intricate tasks, wiring, instruments, inspection. Their integration signified democratic strength, not weakness. As American production surged, Germany retreated into delusion. Göring authorized the Jaeger program in February 1944, dispersing production into 729 underground facilities utilizing slave labor. The Mittelwerk complex employed 60,000 prisoners in horrific conditions, with 20,000 perishing. These subterranean factories produced more defects than functional aircraft. Slave laborers sabotaged components. Transportation between dispersed facilities caused delays. Quality control disintegrated. The entire Mittelwerk complex produced fewer engines monthly than Ford's single Chicago plant. Meanwhile, American innovation accelerated. Boeing developed modular B-29 construction across 4 facilities with completely interchangeable parts. The pressurized B-29, costing $65,000 each, incorporated technology that Germany could not replicate even in prototypes. By early 1945, America was producing 100 B-29s monthly. June 6, 1944, demonstrated the culmination of American production capabilities. The invasion involved 11,590 Allied aircraft against 319 German sorties, a 36-to-1 superiority. This was not tactical advantage, but industrial annihilation. Between January and May 1944, preparatory bombing dropped 145,000 tons on German targets, exceeding all German bombing of Britain throughout the war. Transport aircraft delivered 3 airborne divisions in a single day, utilizing more planes than Germany's entire transport fleet had ever possessed. By December 1944, individual raids involved 1,200 bombers escorted by 900 fighters. P-51. Mustangs possessed the range to reach Poland, the performance to match any adversary, and existed in such numbers that losses became inconsequential. German pilots called them Indians, swarming everywhere simultaneously. As defeat loomed, even Nazi leadership acknowledged the production catastrophe. In December 1944, Goebbels wrote in his diary, "Göring's promises of Luftwaffe superiority now seem like criminal delusions. We are fighting the world's greatest industrial power with mere rhetoric." Göring told his staff before D-Day, "The Americans can lose 10 tanks for every one we destroy and still overwhelm us. When they land, they will arrive with such material superiority that no position can hold." Even Hitler admitted to Speer in January 1945, "We should have listened to Berthica's reports. Their industrial potential was decisive. While we built hundreds, they built tens of thousands." Albert Speer later testified that American bombing reduced German production by 35% for tanks, 31% for aircraft, and 42% for trucks. He stated unequivocally, "The American attacks, which followed a definite system of assault on industrial targets, caused the breakdown of German armaments." Germany's Me-262 jet fighter, operational by mid-1944, represented genuine innovation, flying 100 miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter. Hitler and Göring believed this wonder weapon could restore air superiority despite numerical inferiority. But Germany produced a mere 1,430 Me-262s in total, with never more than 200 operational simultaneously. Engines required overhaul every 10 hours. Critical materials were unavailable, forcing inferior substitutions. America, meanwhile, had initiated jet development in 1942. While the Bell P-59 proved inferior to German jets, Lockheed's P-80 Shooting Star, superior to any German jet, entered production before the war's conclusion. American industrial depth allowed for the simultaneous pursuit of multiple technologies, a luxury Germany could not afford. The contrast epitomized the outcome of the production war. Germany's technological edge in jets meant nothing against America's ability to produce thousands of conventional fighters while simultaneously developing next-generation aircraft. Quality without quantity proved worthless in total war. Hermann Göring's apprehension on May 8, 1945, by elements of the U.S. 36th Infantry Division marked the beginning of his confrontation with reality. Initially defiant at the interrogation facility in Augsburg, he maintained that German technology had been superior, overcome only by sheer numbers. His subsequent transfer to Camp Aschbach in Luxembourg, the dedicated facility for high-ranking Nazi prisoners, led to intensive interrogation. In July 1945, Major Kenneth Heckler conducted extensive interviews, documenting Göring's evolving recognition of American industrial superiority. "I knew American industrial potential was great," Göring admitted to Heckler, "but the execution exceeded my worst fears. That single factory at Willow Run produced more aircraft than our entire bomber force at its peak. It was incomprehensible." He expressed particular astonishment at American logistics. "Your ability to supply forces across two oceans while maintaining domestic production. This was beyond our conception. We couldn't adequately supply forces 500 miles from Germany. You supplied armies 5,000 miles from America." During his trial at Nuremberg, prosecutors presented Göring with overwhelming evidence of American production superiority. Charts displayed America producing more aircraft monthly by 1944 than Germany managed annually. Films of Willow Run's assembly lines played while prosecutors listed German cities annihilated by bombers originating from that single factory. Göring's testimony on March 14, 1946, revealed his struggle to grasp the scale. "I believed the economic and technical potential of the United States to be unusually great, particularly concerning the Air Force, but I never imagined they could increase aircraft production 100-fold in 4 years. Such growth seemed physically impossible." Prison psychologist G.M. Gilbert documented Göring's obsession with production statistics. He repeatedly calculated ratios, comparing single American factories to entire German output. He seemed particularly fixated on Willow Run, calling it "that damned factory that broke our backs." When shown that America had produced 812,615 aircraft engines versus Germany's 241,675, Göring simply stared at the figures in silence. The mathematical reality of defeat was undeniable. The scope of the transformation remains staggering even today. From 3,611 military aircraft in 1940, America produced 295,959 by war's end, including 97,810 bombers, 99,465 fighters, and 98,684 others. This represented not just quantity, but systemic superiority in every facet of production. 2 million Americans worked in aircraft production at its zenith, encompassing unprecedented diversity. Women, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, disabled workers, teenagers, and elderly citizens. This democratic mobilization achieved what totalitarian command could not: voluntary cooperation that exceeded forced labor's output by every metric. The workforce that entered factories in 1941, knowing nothing about aircraft, emerged in 1945 as the world's most skilled aviation workers. They didn't just build planes, they revolutionized manufacturing itself. Statistical quality control developed for bomber production became standard industrial practice worldwide. Automation principles pioneered at Willow Run transformed global manufacturing. The engineers who designed bomber assembly lines would later design the Saturn V rocket. The women who riveted B-24s would raise children who walked on the moon. The production miracle did not end with victory, it launched the American century. The financial dimensions defied economic orthodoxy. Aircraft production consumed $45 billion in 1940s currency, equivalent to $800 billion today. The B-29 program alone cost more than the Manhattan Project. Yet, rather than bankrupting America, war production generated unprecedented prosperity. Unemployment, which had plagued the Depression decade, vanished completely. Personal income doubled between 1940 and 1945. War bond sales by the workers themselves financed much of the expansion. Willow Run workers alone purchased $45 million in bonds, funding their own factories' operations. Germany, conversely, consumed 40% of its entire industrial capacity for aircraft production by 1944, yet produced less than half of American output. Slave labor, increasingly relied upon, proved catastrophically counterproductive. Sabotage was endemic, quality collapsed, productivity per German worker actually declined after 1943, while American productivity surged by 300%. The production infrastructure built for war became the bedrock for post-war prosperity. Aluminum smelters built for bombers supplied materials for suburban housing. Chemical plants that produced aviation fuel created plastics for consumer goods. Machine tool factories that equipped aircraft plants tooled up American industry for global dominance. Beyond sheer production lay organizational excellence. The War Production Board coordinated 184,000 companies seamlessly. IBM punch-card machines tracked millions of components across thousands of suppliers. MIT's radiation laboratory, employing 4,000 scientists, developed navigation systems that gave American bombers all-weather capability. When combat revealed B-17 vulnerability to frontal attacks, Boeing added chin turrets within 60 days. When Pacific operations necessitated extended range, consolidated modified B-24s without halting production. German modifications took months or years. American improvements took weeks. This adaptability proved as decisive as production volume. American aircraft evolved continuously based on global combat experience. Information flowed from Pacific battles to Atlantic production lines within days. German aircraft, produced in isolated underground facilities by slave labor, remained static, while American designs improved weekly. The feedback loop between combat and production achieved unprecedented efficiency. Pilots' observations reached engineers immediately. Engineers' solutions reached assembly lines within days. Assembly line workers' suggestions reached designers directly. This democratic flow of information proved superior to German hierarchical command. On October 15, 1946, mere hours before his scheduled execution, Hermann Göring penned his final letter. In it, he offered his most comprehensive admission of the production war's significance. The Americans won through industrial power, not military prowess. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. The nation we dismissed as capable only of building consumer goods buried the Wehrmacht under aluminum and steel. His last recorded statement to Gilbert was equally revealing. We declared war on an industrial giant while it slept. When it awoke, we were doomed. They didn't just outproduce us, they revolutionized production itself. Every aspect of their system proved superior to ours. Göring committed suicide that night, but his final testimony stands as history's verdict on the production war. The Reich Marshal, who had so dismissively underestimated American capabilities, died knowing that a single American factory had surpassed his entire Air Force's lifetime production. Military historians consider the American production achievement the pivotal factor in Allied victory. Without the overwhelming material superiority it provided, D-Day would have been impossible, the bombing campaign unsustainable, and the Pacific War unwinnable. Richard Overy, a leading historian of the air war, concluded, "The outcome was determined not by fighting spirit or tactical brilliance, but by the weight of material. The Allies prevailed because they buried their enemies under an avalanche of production." The statistics unequivocally support this assessment. By 1944, America alone was producing more military aircraft than the rest of the world combined, both Axis and Allied. This was not incremental superiority, but an order of magnitude dominance. Germany faced not defeat, but obliteration. Yet, the significance of the production miracle transcended mere military victory. It demonstrated democracy's superiority over dictatorship, freedom's advantage over tyranny, and voluntary cooperation's strength over forced obedience. The workers who accomplished this transformation were not slaves or conscripts, but free citizens united in a common purpose. Hermann Göring's disdain for the industrial might of the United States represents history's gravest error in judgment. His arrogance towards the productive power of a free society led directly to Germany's defeat and the tragic loss of countless lives. His inability to comprehend America's manufacturing capabilities sealed the doom of the Third Reich long before any aerial assaults reached German soil. The astonishing escalation in aircraft production from a mere 3,000 to 100,000 units annually served as irrefutable proof that free nations, when confronted with existential threats, can achieve the seemingly impossible. The American workforce not only met President Roosevelt's ambitious target, but surpassed it by twofold. They did not merely equal Germany's output, they dwarfed it by a factor of 5, all while engaged in a simultaneous conflict in the Pacific theater. Contemporary leaders would be wise to heed the lessons from Göring's oversight. To dismiss democratic nations as inherently weak due to their peaceful nature, or to underestimate the productive capacity of free citizens who prioritize prosperity over conquest, is to court disastrous miscalculations. In the year 1940, America appeared ill-prepared for war. By 1944, it had transformed into an unyielding industrial behemoth. The arsenal of democracy demonstrated that assembly lines could be as pivotal as battlefronts, that factory laborers could be as vital as combat troops, and that the effective mobilization of industry could determine the outcome of victory just as surely as any military maneuver. Göring grasped this reality far too late, at the irreversible cost of his nation's annihilation. From his dismissive reaction to President Roosevelt's declaration in May of 1940, to his final reckoning at the Nuremberg Trials in October of 1946, Hermann Göring's trajectory mirrored the decline and fall of Nazi Germany. His contempt for American manufacturing became the epitaph of the Third Reich, a regime that conflated ideological fervor with practical capability, mistook authoritarianism for strength, and believed that racial dogma could supersede the logic of industrial mathematics. The Reichsmarshal, who so readily scorned America's aircraft production, passed away aware that American factories had manufactured more aircraft in the single year of 1944 than Germany had produced throughout the entirety of the war. His mockery of democratic industrial prowess became history's most costly jest, paid for with the ultimate price of complete capitulation. The United States manufactured 295,959 military aircraft. Germany's production numbered 94,677. However, the true triumph resided not merely in the figures, but in the methodology. It was a demonstration that free workers could outproduce enslaved labor, that collaborative effort within a democracy could surpass the directives of totalitarian command, and that a nation composed of immigrants and diverse individuals could unite to achieve the extraordinary. The B-24 Liberator bombers emerging from the Willow Run assembly line every 63 minutes were more than just aircraft. They were liberty's definitive response to oppression. Each rivet was secured by a woman who, mere months prior, had been tending to her home. Each engine was meticulously crafted by a teenager who had forsaken his studies to serve his country. Each wing was expertly assembled by workers who had escaped hardship and discrimination. Together, they proved that free peoples, united in a just cause, could overwhelm tyranny with an avalanche of production. Hermann Göring scoffed at the notion of America producing 50,000 aircraft annually. America's response was to manufacture twice that number, fundamentally altering the course of global history in the process. His derision reverberates through time as the echo of a catastrophic miscalculation, the fatal dismissal of democracy's industrial might by a man who understood neither the principles of freedom nor the mechanics of production. In the end, Both democracy and its prodigious output became the instruments that buried him and all he represented beneath 300,000 aircraft, transforming his contempt into history's most comprehensive defeat.